Welcome back, dear children. I hope you all are safe and healthy. Let's continue with our fourth chapter. Activity. Collect the samples of metals such as aluminium, copper, iron, lead, magnesium, and zinc. Take a sandpaper. Clean the surface of each sample by rubbing with the sandpaper. Take 6 test tubes on the test tube rack. Add aluminium, copper, iron, lead, magnesium and zinc metals to each test tube. Pour 10 ml of dilute hydrochloric acid into each test tube. Observe the changes in each test tube. Measure the temperature in each test tube by using thermometer. Note down the readings. In this activity, we have observed bubbles in the test tube which contains metals like aluminium, iron, lead, magnesium and zinc, and also observed the high temperature in these solutions. Similarly, we do not find any reaction in the test tube which contain copper metal, and the temperature of this solution remains unchanged. From this activity, we have learned that the most of the metals react with dilute acids and form salt and hydrogen gas. The reaction was also the most exothermic reaction in each metal. In the case of copper, no bubbles were seen, and the temperature also remains unchanged. Take 2 test tubes. Label them as A and B. Pour iron sulfate solution into the test tube A. Take a copper wire and put it in the solution of iron sulfate test tube A. In the other test tube B, pour copper sulfate solution. Now, take an iron nail and put it in the solution of copper sulfate test tube B. Close both the test tubes with rubber corks. Observe the changes after some time. In this activity, we have observed the color of the copper sulfate solution changes from blue to pale green in the test tube B, and also observe the copper layer on the iron nail. In test tube A, we do not observe any change in the state of the copper wire. From this activity, we have learned that more reactive metals can displace less reactive metals from their compounds in solution or in molten form. Copper sulfate plus iron gives rise to iron sulfate plus copper. Activity. Take 500 ml beakers and label them as P, Q, R, S and T. Pour 50 ml of water in each beaker. Dissolve a spoonful of copper sulfate in beakers P and Q. Now, dissolve a spoonful of zinc sulfate, iron sulfate in beakers R, S and T respectively. Now put zinc granules in beaker P, iron nail in beaker Q and T, copper turnings in beakers R and S. Leave the beakers undisturbed and observe the changes in each beaker. We have observed that in beaker P, the blue color of copper sulfate disappears and a powdery red mass of copper is deposited at the bottom of the beaker. We have also observed that in beaker Q, red copper is found in the bottom of the beaker and on the nail, leaving light green iron sulfate solution. Similarly, we also observe that there is no change in the I in other three beakers R, S and T. We learned that in beaker P, zinc displaces copper from copper sulfate, giving rise to colorless zinc sulfate. Copper sulfate plus iron gives rise to zinc sulfate plus copper. Similarly, in beaker Q, iron displaces copper from copper sulfate, giving rise to light green color of the iron sulfate. Copper sulfate plus iron gives rise to iron sulfate plus copper. Since we do not see any change in the other three beakers R, S and T, we learn that copper is unable to displace zinc from zinc sulfate in beaker R. Copper is unable to displace iron from iron sulfate in beaker S. Iron is unable to displace zinc from zinc sulfate in beaker T. Finally, we can say that a more reactive metal can displace a less reactive metal, but a less reactive metal cannot replace a more reactive metal. Owing to this reason, there are no displacement reactions in beaker R, S and T. Story of early tools. Early human beings made their tools from stone and wood, which are easily available from nature. Later, they used the bones of animals and then they discovered metals like copper and iron, which are much stronger than the tools made up of stone and wood. Metals had the advantage of not just being harder, but they could be heated in a fire and molded or cast into different shapes. That is why a wider range of tools are made with metals. Homework for today. Dear children, please complete the assigned tasks. Read the part of the lesson completed for better understanding. List out the uses of metals and non-metals that you have learned in this chapter. Thank you.